Welcome to today's webinar, Accessing the NDIS. Your presenter today is Pamela Williams, and I'm delighted to be your facilitator. I'm Nicola Graham. And it's a wonderful webinar, Accessing the NDIS. We know that it can be daunting and somewhat overwhelming when you're looking at applying to the NDIS. So by the end of this webinar, we hope you're going to feel a lot more confident about that application process. We like to start all of our programs with an acknowledgement. So we acknowledge and pay respect to the traditional custodians past and present on whose lands we meet today. We acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and the relationship of Aboriginal people to country, and we respect the cultural authority of the elders in each community. So it's my very great pleasure to introduce a lovely work colleague of mine, Pamela Williams. And Pamela's been working in disability case management for 16 years. Previously, she worked in complex disability areas such as MS, autism, cerebral palsy, and Parkinson's. Pam started at MS in 2016 as MS Coordinator of NDIS Supports, and then in Jan 2019 she moved to the role of Team Leader Engagement. So Pam's supporting our engagement team to enable them to offer the best possible support to people like yourselves wanting to enter the NDIS. So Pam knows a lot and has worked in the NDIS space for a long time. So Pam, I am now going to hand over to you. So Pam and I are working remotely, so we're just going to swap screens. So Pam, I might get you to turn your webcam off. I'm going to also turn my webcam off so that we save people's broadband.
Beautiful. Hi everybody, welcome to our Accessing NDIS webinar. Please be gentle with me because I haven't done this before, so here we go. We'll give it a go. I hope today I'm able to give you lots of information about accessing the NDIS, the journey that you need to go through to access the NDIS. So the learning outcomes from today, I'm hoping that you'll have some understanding of the NDIS. You'll understand about eligibility and how it's determined. You'll understand funding, what is reasonable and necessary supports, etc., and becoming familiar with the NDIS Access Request Form, which is often referred to as the ARF. So if I say the ARF through this, I'm sorry, I do mean the Access Request Form. And also talking about the 6 key areas of reporting to NDIS. The National Disability Insurance Scheme is a new way of providing funded supports and services for eligible people with a permanent or significant disability. The scheme is rolled out across most of Australia at this point. Eligibility. To be eligible to access NDIS, you need to be under the age of 65. You need to satisfy some residency requirements, being you need to be an Australian citizen or on certain sort of visas. Have an impairment, disability or condition that is likely to be permanent, as in lifelong, and stops you from doing everyday tasks by yourself. So how they make funding decisions. So reasonable explanation in formal networks. NDIS will always look at the informal supports you receive from your family and friends before they will offer you any other supports. The level of family support is not reasonable, for instance, if they are needing too much support from their carer. So if you've got someone in a carer role, they shouldn't be doing too much support. You know, you need to sort of have some kind of balance there. Value for money, they will only provide supports and services that are reasonably priced, etc. So you know, the supports need to be from the price guide. NDIS have a price guide of what they expect to pay for services, and that's what funding goes from. Assistance to pursue your goals. When you're applying for NDIS, all your supports and services that you require are built around the goals that you set up when you first start. So your goals need to be really broad, and usually you have like 3 or 4 goals. They're really broad and they cover all of the, or you try to keep them like that so that they will give you any of the supports that you want to can relate to any one of those goals. So that's really important. Facilitate social and economic participation. It's important to ensure that people are not becoming socially isolated, because this can happen really easily. And so NDIS can fund supports for support workers to take people out into the community, to take them to appointments if they need to, things like that. They can also offer a transport allowance, which can support with that too. And even for people who are able to drive, if you're having a really bad MS day and you can't drive, then you can use that transport funding to get an Uber or a taxi or something like that. Because if you're driving on one of those days, you're putting yourself and everybody else on the road at risk. So you're better off if you don't drive and you use your transport allowance.
Pam, can I ask a quick question here? Meta has asked, can you please give us an example of a typical goal?
A typical goal. So one of the goals, I've written some sort of standard goals that I use quite often. And one of my main ones is I would like to be supported to continue to live as independently as possible, feeling safe and secure in my own home. So that sort of
That's great.
encompasses
That's lovely and broad, isn't it?
Yeah, and it encompasses like the cleaning of your home, your gardening, feeling safe, quite often a personal alarm, things like that. So that's sort of one of the first goals. Another goal that I quite often use is I would like to be supported to maintain how do I word it? To build and maintain my health and my strength and my mobility, and keep my pain levels as low as possible. So that brings in like exercise physiology, all sorts of things around that. So they're the kind of goals that you need, because you need to be able to, as I said, bring any of the supports that you need into those goals. And
Great.
if you're asking for a support, then you can say, well, that relates to this goal, or if you can do that, it's a big help.
Beautiful.
Does
Thanks, Pam.
that help? Okay. All right. NDIS will not fund any supports that are not able to get from that. So basically, NDIS won't fund supports that you could get through your health services, such as things like if you go through your GP and you get a mental health plan, you can use a mental health plan to use psychology. They only offer 10 sessions, and some people need fortnightly sessions. So what we can agree to with NDIS is that they offer, so you get your 10 sessions through your mental health plan, and then you can have, you could maybe get another 16 through NDIS, which means you could actually have fortnightly sessions. So some funded through Medicare and some funded through NDIS. So there are certain things that NDIS won't fund. Okay, so there's 2 different ways of getting into NDIS. If you're also already receiving disability services, NDIS or somebody will contact you and take you through the process. Or if you're new to a disability, you can contact NDIS and ask them for an access request form, which is quite often called an ARF. And then which needs to be completed by a health professional. And then you can return that with any other letters of support that you can get hold of. Or you could contact MS Connect for support from an MSL Engagement Team coordinator, which is my wonderful team. So our engagement coordinators, I have a brilliant team of awesome coordinators, and they can take you step by step through the process, which is really helpful. We find a lot of people get rejected if they try to do it on their own. But as the girls are all very experienced, it does make a big difference. So it is really important that you get your access request form completed correctly. It's important that you cover their eligibility. Section 2 and 3 need to be completed by a health professional. And also it's really good to attach any letters of support from physios or OTs or anybody like that, letters of support explaining what kind of supports you need, which is what we call supporting evidence to help with your access request. So, so in our engagement team, we've got engagement coordinators, as I said, and they can work with you step by step through the process of the access request form. One of the things that we do with a lot of people is pre-planning, and this is my NDIS Access Request Information Schedule. So one of our lovely coordinators would speak to you, arrange a time to meet with you, and then they go through this schedule, which covers the 6 key areas that NDIS needs information about. And then they will write a report on that and share it with you so that you can check that you're happy with it, and then they will and then you can take that off to your health professional to help them complete the access request form. Because we find a lot of the health professionals, etc., don't know how to complete the access request form properly, or they don't have the time to do it. So we try and provide all the information for that so that they can, well, if they wanted to, they could just copy and paste it. But we have our form set up that way for that reason. That's the idea of that original one. So, yes, so it's we do it individually, because everybody with MS has individual symptoms and they're all different. So we cover the 6 key areas of the information that NDIS need. Sorry, yeah, so the coordinator would go with you step by step all the way through the process until you are accepted to NDIS. NDIS have their 6 key areas, which is mobility, communication, social interaction, learning, self-care, self-management. So these are some of the things that you need to consider around these areas about your mobility. Can you walk around your home and community with ease? So that, like that, you could think about that in, am I able to walk 20 metres or 50 metres, or just getting some kind of idea of, what your mobility is like. Do you use a walking aid, or do you need a walking aid? Or do you have problems with your balance, and do you have falls, etc.? Are you more fatigued, during when it's very hot, or, do you have numbness or spasticity, all that sort of stuff? And do you need an exercise program to help build and maintain your strength and mobility? So these are the sort of things, these are the sort of questions that we look at when we're completing the form, because this is the information that NDIS need to know about. Communication. Is your speech or ability to write compromised? Quite often people with MS, one of the problems they have is they choke a lot, or they slur their words or something. So you can actually get support from a speech therapist to help you with things like that. And a lot of people have trouble with word finding and things like that. So somebody like that is able to help you to come up with strategies that are going to make, your life easier. That's the plan. Social interaction. Are you able to manage your emotions? Can you make and keep friends? Are you socially isolated? So many people are out there, they're socially isolated because a lot of the MS symptoms are hidden symptoms. So therefore people can't see them and people don't understand them. And people with MS quite often feel socially isolated because they don't want to go out into the community and that because they're worried what people are going to say or people are going to think. So you can get like psychology through NDIS, as I said, and also like OTs and people like that who can help you to work out some strategies to help you with that and things like that. So that's really important. Is your cognition affected? Do you have difficulty remembering things? And these are other things that there are OTs and people out there who are able to offer support in, building strategies with you independently to build your independence and help you to cope with some of these things and give you some strategies, etc. And a lot of the time we need to think, when we're thinking about these things, we also need to think about how you are on a bad MS day or how you are on a very, very hot day, because they're the times that you can be more severely affected with all of these 6 key areas. Self-care. Are you able to shower independently, dress, feed yourself properly? Do you have continence issues? So through NDIS, you can get support workers to come and give you a shower and to help you dress and things like that. You can have people come and prepare meals for you. You can, if you have continence issues, you can get a continence assessment, and they will also fund continence products for you, whether they be pads or catheters, etc. Self-management, are you able to make decisions independently? Are you comfortable with that? Are you able to do your meals and do your home and keep your home clean and comfortable, etc.? And are you able to manage your paperwork, etc.? So NDIS can offer supports for people to come and clean your home and do your garden. And one of the big things I find I've found a lot is people struggle to make their beds or change the linen on their bed. That's something that can be really helpful. And, helping with the laundry, a lot of people aren't able to hang their laundry out. They're washing on the clothesline, things like that. Also, NDIS can offer you supports with paying your NDIS invoices. So you can get what's called plan management, which is somebody who can pay those NDIS bills for you. So it just takes a bit of pressure off you. Okay, so the need to get the ARF right. So you really need to get it right in the first place, because otherwise you may be ineligible, or as it quite often comes up, you could be rejected. So in those situations, you can appeal, or which, if you're rejected and you need to appeal or reapply or whatever, it does take extra time, and it may also cost some money because you may need to get some extra reports, etc. It can create a lot of stress for a lot of people. People can get quite distressed if they're rejected, but it is quite a common occurrence at this stage. We don't really understand why with a lot of people, but it's the way it is. And if you are rejected, a lot of the time it can be just because that access request form was not completed properly, like in boxes where it actually says, no, does not need assistance, where you actually do need that assistance, things like that. And like the health professional has maybe focused on the service and support you actually require rather than the actual condition or actual issue, which is why you need that support. Some everyday examples of the issues are not included. So NDIS, while they want a lot of medical information about all this stuff, they also want everyday functional information about how you cope on a day-to-day basis. When the focus of the information is not on a bad MS day. So if you write all your information on a day when you're great, then they're going to go, well, there's nothing wrong here. So you really need to think about those days when you're having a bad day. Okay, and also too if there's not enough details in there. And my lovely coordinators can also support you to appeal the NDIS or reapply if you need to. That's something that we can support people with as well. So this slide is about all the different supporting evidence that you can get. So, you know, most of these are obviously from health professionals, but that's the sort of some suggestions of what you can get as supporting evidence to help with your application. Things to consider. Consider, as I said before, how your symptoms fluctuate, because they can change daily. They can change hourly, really. The scheme's designed to support people's ability to lead an ordinary life and complete everyday tasks and activities. A lot of people struggle with fatigue, and I find that that's a really difficult one because that's one of those hidden symptoms that people can't see and don't really understand. So it's about, for me, it's about giving you the best quality of life we can. So that's what that's about. You know, and a lot of people do have a lot of day-to-day struggles, but because they're so used to them, they sort of forget that they're there. We quite often find when we're going through the pre-planning schedule with people, we'll go through some of the symptoms and people will say, oh, yeah, I have got that symptom, but I didn't realize it was a symptom. Like I just thought it was something else. So, you know, there's a lot that people have going on that they don't realize is actually a symptom of MS. Sorry, I hope I'm not talking too quickly. I'm trying to leave time for questions, etc. Yeah, and also consider the hidden symptoms, the fatigue, the cognition, and incontinence and heat intolerance, all those things, and about how they affect you on your everyday life. If you're deemed ineligible, as I said before, you can get the decision reviewed, or you can appeal the decision, or you can actually complete a new ARF within after 3 months. But as I said, our NDIS, our MS engagement coordinators can support you through this process of investigating what more information is required to enable you to access NDIS, because sometimes it can be just that they haven't got enough functional information about your day-to-day functionality. It's, you know, a lot. Sometimes they've got more medical information, whereas they really want to know your day-to-day stuff, like how far can you walk and things like that. So our team can help you through that process. Some of the barriers that we face often are inexperienced NDIS planners, inexperienced local area coordinators. The problem with a lot of the time we have problems with NDIS, like we'll go and ask them a question and it depends on who you talk to on what reply you get. So if you get, someone might tell you one thing and then you can ring back 5 minutes later and been told the total opposite. So it's really quite often it's a bit of a tricky one sometimes to work out what is correct and what is not. But I think it just depends on what's happening at the time. But my team are very passionate about what they do. They're very committed. And so we support our clients as far as possible. And we've really got some really great results from that. We get compliments constantly. We get between 2 and 3 compliments a week from clients about the support that we've provided our clients with. So there you go. I hope that was helpful. Really.
Pam, that's fantastic. And there's some great information in there for people. And I think underpinning that, knowing that people can get support from your team to go through that process is really reassuring. So just to check, Pam, in order for people to engage with your team, I'm assuming they call MS Connect on the 1-800-042-138 number.
Yes, that's right. They can ring there and ask to just explain that they want support with accessing NDIS, or they've been rejected from NDIS, and the MS coordinator will do a service request to our team, and then I will allocate them to one of my lovely ladies.
Fantastic. Now, I know we've got some questions that people put in when they registered. We've also had a couple of questions come in whilst you've been running through the slides, Pam. So I'm going to start with a question from Janet. And Janet's asking, do you need referrals for accessing health services such as physio or psychologists under the NDIS?
The way that generally works is once you get onto NDIS, you will quite often probably need a referral maybe for a psychologist from like a GP. But if you've got support coordination, so there are, to support you with your plan, I explained that there are people who can pay the bills, etc. There's also a thing called support coordination, which is a support that MS offer as well. And that is somebody who can help you find the appropriate services. Once you've got your plan, they can help you find your appropriate services, make sure those services are looking after you properly, help you with your service agreements for them, etc. And they can do referrals to different services that you require.
And I know, Pam, you mentioned that the NDIS will not fund things that the health area should already be covering. Can you talk a little bit more about that, please, Pam?
Okay, so NDIS generally won't fund things that you can actually get through, like your mental health care plan or your, what's the other one? The chronic disease management plan. The things that you can get through there, NDIS generally won't fund. But as I said, I have come to agreements with them before where I've said, well, from the point of psychology or a lot of these other appointments, they will come to the party and offer some appointments, some sessions, but just not until the mental health plan or whatever has been completely used.
But it would be normal for the NDIS to fund a physio or an OT, for example.
Absolutely.
Is that correct?
They're the two main ones. NDIS won't fund like a chiropractor. They won't fund massage, which is one that's quite important to our people. And there are things that they won't fund, but the main two that we work with are OT and physio. And exercise physiology, we quite often set people up with a physio who will write an exercise program for a client, and it's an individual exercise program, and then they will take that off to an exercise physiologist who will then work with them through that plan, and then the physio can just sort of oversee it each sort of couple of months to make sure it's going well, and just do a few little changes to it as necessary.
Great. And Fiona's asked on that line, Pam, will NDIS fund yoga and meditation sessions?
No.
Oh, that's a shame.
It is. Like, we fight for a lot of these things. We've been fighting for a lot of these things for a long time, but no, and there's a lot of things like that they don't see as real needs. And this is where we find it difficult because they don't understand MS and they don't understand how important these things are to our people, but there really isn't much we can do about it.
And Meta's asked, would they fund Pilates?
No, they won't fund Pilates either.
Sonia's asking, would they fund a bathroom renovation to make it more accessible?
Absolutely. home modifications. They will fund. They will fund equipment. If you need equipment, like people need wheelchair. But the thing you need to remember too about NDIS, once you're on NDIS, you've got it for the rest of your life. Now with MS, because it's a progressive disease, your needs are changing often. And so every year your plan would be reviewed. So the next year, like this year, you may not need any equipment at all, but next year you may need that. So when your review comes in next year and you can then go, well, I really need a walker now, or I need this, or I need that. So you're able to get that start. It doesn't all happen in the one go. It's reviewed annually, and that's how and that's great because of the changes in the needs of people with MS.
And as I understand, Pam, it's not means tested either, is it? So your savings, your income, etc., have
Nothing
no
to do with
bearing
any of that. No.
Great.
No, you just need
And
to be an Australian citizen and under 65.
Great, that's really good to know. And Janet has asked a really good question, actually, with regards to our engagement team and all the help they provide. Is there any fee for that, Pam?
No, we're all free.
We're all free. That's
we're
so
all
good
free.
to
We're
hear.
funded through MS. So
that's
the
our
funding that
fundraisers,
they
etc.
raise,
Yeah,
yes, that pays
that's
for our
wonderful.
supports.
That's wonderful, and I guess also an encouragement to our listeners to get involved with our fundraising as well.
Yes.
Yeah. And Janet's asking another great question. She said, first of all, that's fantastic that it's free, but she's also asked, what happens when you turn 66?
Well, once you're on NDIS, you're on NDIS for life. If you are not on NDIS by the time you turn 65, you can then go on to the aged care system.
I understand that it is better to be on NDIS than in the aged care system, Pam. Is that correct?
I think that's something that people have different opinions about, but that's my belief, yes. Okay. I believe you're far better off on NDIS than you are on the aged care system.
Matthew has asked, can you request for an experienced NDIS staff member?
Of course. Whether you get it might be a bit different question, but what happens when we go through this, our team will support you all the way through. So, and part of what we do is we attend your first meeting with NDIS to make sure that you're getting all of the supports that you need. So we've done, prior to you meeting with them for the first time, we've done a second lot of pre-planning, which is more around your day-to-day needs and things like that, and your functional abilities and things like that. So we've got that. You've got a copy of that, and we've got a copy of that. So we would also support you in that meeting and be there with you to support you and make sure that you're getting all of the supports that you require.
It's a lovely service, Pam. No wonder you're passionate about what you do.
I am.
Now, I know that you received some questions when people registered, so I'd love it if you could read those out, Pam, and address any ones that are pertinent. Meanwhile, I have got a couple more questions come up as well. So Sandy has said, do you support those who live in rural and remote areas?
Absolutely. We're happy to support anybody who has a neurological condition.
Okay, regardless of where they live, providing they're in Australia.
Yeah. So generally we cover New South Wales, ACT, Victoria and Tas. So they're the
and
states.
the reader has asked, how can the meetings happen with COVID-19?
Everything's done over the phone. Our team, we very, very rarely leave the office. We do all of our work over the phone, and our team are very experienced at doing it that way. So it works really, really well. And as I said, we do everything over the phone, and we're there for everybody the whole time.
Wonderful. Now,
And
Angela
can I
has
just
asked,
say, if you, can I just say, if you came to the engagement team, I will allocate you to an engagement coordinator, and that coordinator will support you from that time right until you're accepted. So there's none of this like, you're going to talk to Mary today and Fred tomorrow, and it's one person that you're dealing with, which I think makes a big difference, because you don't want to be telling your story over and over and over again. You need someone who gets to know you a little bit.
Yeah, that consistency is so important, isn't it, Pam?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Angela has asked, if you're not eligible for the concession for air conditioning on electricity, but one of your main issues is heat intolerance, can you get any assistance with this as part of NDIS? Good question.
Yes, very good question. NDIS don't usually fund air conditioning. They will fund things like cooling equipment, like cooling vests, and you can get special sheets and things like that. But if you have issues with that and you can't get your air conditioning through their MS, we have a financial assistance program which can support with that sometimes.
Oh, that's
So
great to know.
yeah, so I also manage that.
Okay. So Pam, I might ask you to read out and answer some of the questions that people had at registration.
Yep.
That would be really helpful. Thank you.
So one question here, I think my MS has got to a stage where I need more assistance with managing the symptoms, and I also need help at home. And that's great, because they're the kind of things that NDIS can help with. I think that it's really important to think about the supports that they can give you. And, as I've quite often said to people, if you do your housework and it knocks you out and then you're not able to do anything for 2 days, I think that you're better off getting someone else to do it, and then you can have a better quality of life and enjoy that time. So, yeah, that's very important. And that's what it's there for. Next one is, my application was rejected by NDIS. So we can support you to reapply or appeal the decision. And you can do that yourself if you'd like to, but we're able to support you with that. My condition has progressed to a point that I'm requiring further supports and need to understand how to go about accessing NDIS. So I've just explained how you can access NDIS. And people, one question we get a lot is, people say, I'm not sure whether I need NDIS or whether I should access NDIS. And in that scenario, give us a call, ring MS Connect, ask them to do a service request to us, talk to one of my lovely ladies, and they can go through that with you and work out what kind of supports you do need and see where they can help you, because they can then say to you, well, look, you really don't need that much at the moment, but maybe down the track, give us a call back and we can go further. Or it can be quite surprising what actually comes out of those conversations, and they can progress with an application.
That's great, Pam. Any more questions to cover from the
No.
registration process? Okay, that's
No.
lovely. No more questions have come up here, so I would just like to run through some final housekeeping slides here as well. And thank you, Pam, so much good information there. And it's so reassuring to know that there's help available. And sorry, I've just had one more question come in. Oh, that was just from Angela saying thank you, and you're very welcome, Angela. It's
You're
our pleasure.
very, very welcome. And please don't hesitate to contact me if you have any further questions or need any more information. I'm more than happy to answer any questions, or if I don't know the answer, I'll find out for you.
That's great. And Yvonne's saying thank you. Janet's saying it sounds like it could be quite difficult doing this without your service. And I think that, yes, it can be quite discombobulating.
Absolutely. We get a lot of people who are very stressed and very anxious, and you know, have found it quite difficult. And it's just because we have the experience and you know what we're looking at and what we're trying to do, etc. And I've got
Narida's
such
just
an
asked
awesome
one.
team.
That helps,
Sorry.
Pam, doesn't it?
It does.
Narida's asked, what is the learning part of NDIS?
So the learning part is you can, they can, sorry, I'm trying to think. So what they can do is they can support you to do sort of like a short group session. So we have a lot of people at MS. I'm in Blackburn. We have an art group there. So for instance, we have a lot of people that come there and do an art group. And it's a group thing where they're all learning about art, but they're all interested in the same topic. But they're all also, so it's it helps with isolation. They make friends. They've all got, you know, similar interests. They can help with things like that, with groups and things like that, to be able to support you to, you know, to learn different things and also to be out into the community more.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, it does. So thank you, Pam. I'm just going to run through the last bit of the housekeeping. People should be able to see my slides now. I'm just checking if any more questions have come in. And Linda, just acknowledging you've realised you're 67 and therefore it's My Aged Care is more appropriate for you. So just want to remind you, the MS Connect team, lots of good reasons to call us. Primary one for today being to access our NDIS supports. And we can give you respite options. We can help you with connections and education, provide support for people who are newly diagnosed. And you get access to our nurse advisors, our social workers and our MS experts. So really useful service for you. We provide peer support, so that's our wonderful peer support team there, and you can get one-on-one phone support, face-to-face groups that we run, telegroups and Facebook groups, so again helping with that isolation. We have a tool online called Get Your Act Together, which helps with symptom management. We also have employment support services for people who are in work and need support to stay in work, and for people who may be looking for new work. As you appreciate, we are a registered NDIS provider, providing different services in different areas. Just a note about My Aged Care, so if you are over 65, then My Aged Care is the government initiative to assist people over 65, and we are running a webinar and have got webinar recordings around My Aged Care and how to access it. And as we've mentioned a few times during this webinar, the access to all of our services is through MS Connect on 1800 042 138, or you can email msconnect@ms.org.au. I'm just checking if there's any last questions. One last one, Pam, from Daniel, just saying, will NDIS help with gym payments?
They won't actually fund a gym service itself, like a gym membership, because they believe that that's an everyday expense that everybody should fund. But they will supply a support worker to take you to the gym and help you with your gym program if you'd like that.
That's great. Okay, guys, on that note, we'll close the webinar for today. I hope you've got some really great information. You're feeling more confident about applying to the NDIS. Very big thank you to you, Pam. You did a fantastic job, and really appreciate your time today. Okay, bye everybody, and thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much.